Hello, it's Catherine from A Spot of Stamping here, and today I have for you an infinity card or never-ending card. And the reason why they call it a never-ending card is because, as you can see, I'm going through it and turning and turning and turning. If I wanted to, I could just keep going and not stop. Eventually though, you do get back to the beginning. For this card, I've used the Gingham Gala suite on page 35 of the 2019 Occasions catalogue. We have used the Butterfly Gala stamp set, the Butterfly Duet Punch, and the Gingham Gala Designer Series paper, which comes in these 5 colours. On one side you've got the wide gingham, and when you flip it over you've got all the narrow gingham, so that makes it really versatile. We've also used the Butterfly Botanical Designer Series paper from the Sale-A-Bration catalogue. You can earn this paper for free at the moment when you spend $110. Has all these beautiful butterflies on one side with all these lovely colours, and on the reverse the colours are all black and white. That makes this paper super versatile. You can leave it as it is, you can colour it in, you can do all sorts, and I love it. 2 of the papers in the pack, this orange one here and the black and white one, they both coordinate with the Butterfly Duet Punch, and I will show you a bit later on in the video just how that works. So how do we make our card? Well, you need 4 pieces of Whisper White cardstock that measures 6 inches by 3 inches. Usually I use metric measurements for my cards, but I got this tutorial off Split Coast Stampers and it was already in imperial measurements. At the time I didn't have the opportunity to convert it, so I stuck with the imperial. I did, however, use the metric measurements for my designer series paper, because that's just the easiest thing for me. So 4 pieces of Whisper White cardstock that measures 6 inches by 3 inches. You need 8 pieces of designer series paper that measures 7 centimeters square. You need 8 pieces of designer series paper that measures 7 centimeters by 3.2. 8 pieces of designer series paper that measures 3.2 centimeters square, and you need 2 pieces of Whisper White cardstock that are 6 centimeters square, an offcut of Whisper White cardstock that is more than 5 centimeters square, because you are going to cut that out with a die, a strip of Whisper White cardstock. You can see here we're going to punch a small butterfly out of that. And lastly, a piece of the Grapefruit Grove foil, which is also a Sale-A-Bration item when you spend $110. You get 4 sheets of this gorgeous grapefruit foil and 4 sheets in the lovely lipstick colour. So getting on to making our card, we need our pieces of Whisper White cardstock, and you will also need your scoreboard. So you take one of your pieces and place it into your scoreboard with the long edge along the top, and you need to score it at 1.5 inches and 4.5 inches, and then rotate it 90 degrees and score again at 1.5, stopping at that score line going across. You can see how I've only brought the vertical line down that far, and then you need to rotate it 90 degrees and do the same thing at that end. And you will do the same thing to all 4 pieces of your cardstock, so you have 4 nicely scored pieces. And then you can put your scoreboard aside and you don't need that any longer. So the first thing you need to do is take 2 of your pieces of cardstock and lay them side by side. And then, if it's easiest for you, you can grab a piece of removable tape and put some removable tape over that join just to hold it in place while you do the next steps. You will see once you've scored it that you've got some nice squares in the corner, and you want to put Tombow on all 4 of those squares. Glue is not a good idea because you need to be able to line it up, wiggle it around, get it all lined up, and if you've used tape then it will stick straight away. So Tombow is the best thing. So once you've got glue on those 4 squares, you need to take one of your other pieces and lay it directly over the top. You'll see that the join line is going vertically. This time when you lay the pieces over the top, you want to lay them in such a way that the join line will go horizontally. You can see here why you need a little bit of wiggle room so that you can get those corners nicely joined up. You can cover up that tape, that's okay. You'll be able to take it off at a later point. And then you want the next one and put that over the top. Again, lining it all up nicely with the corners so you've got a nice edge. And you give that Tombow a few seconds just to set. Right, so now that my Tombow's set, I'm going to start opening my card. You can see that the middle here is open and it's glued in these corners. So what you want to do is you want to start turning it, and underneath you've got a score line which is going to assist that. It's going to naturally want to turn on that score line. You need to make sure that you pick it up off the desk or table as you turn it so that the underneath can turn, and then lay it down and burnish it with your bone folder. Next you want to do the other side. You want to pick it up and fold it on that score line and burnish it with your bone folder. Now you can take that tape off, so it's done its job, it's held that there for you whilst you've glued it, and you want to start trying to open the next folds. So you can see that there is score lines here. They are what you want to do. You want to pick it up and start folding on these score lines here, fold it back, and whilst you do that, this piece here is going to flip around. So fold them back and burnish it on your score line. What you don't want to do is put it on the table and try and fold that back, because this piece is not going to be able to flip and you're going to end up with a fold line through here which you don't want. So you do need to make sure when you're folding it over that you pick it up off the table. So we're folding back on that score line, this piece is flipping up as it's going, and we burnish that fold. So now you've got something that looks a little bit like a T shape, with a wide vertical part and a narrower. And when you fold that open again, you should be back to the beginning where you started. So you have got the front, and then you open it up, and then you open it up again, open it up again, open it again, and finally open it again, and you will be back to the beginning of your card. So this is your card base. You can now go ahead and decorate that. The first thing we want to do is we want to get some of that Lemon Lime Twist Designer Series paper, and we're going to put some Tombow on it and adhere that to the front of our card. There you go, on the square parts like that. The next thing to put on is the black and white butterfly strips at the top, you'll see that you've got a score line here, but that's okay. You're going to cover that up with your paper. So go ahead and stick all those onto the front now. Okay, so you can see I've stuck on my paper on the front. We've got a little bit more decorating to do on the front. As you can see from this one, there's some butterflies over here and some of the grapefruit foil, but we'll come back to that a bit later on. We'll get all our DSP stuck on first. So you want to open it up. The next layer we want to do is our yellow and black layer. So I have some of the Daffodil Delight gingham paper. I've already stamped mine. You want to put one piece there, and then you can stamp that one there with the Butterfly Gala stamp set. With the stamp set here, you can see that the stamps are joined together. So for that particular one, I have used the lacy look, and you can see that the stamps are both on the same piece. Later on, I'll show you how I have managed to get just the small butterfly on its own. So I've stuck on my Daffodil Delight Designer Series paper. I've chosen to use the narrow side of the gingham for the yellow, and then I'm going to go ahead and attach my black and white butterflies to the sides. Again, there is a score line through here, but that's okay. You can cover it up and you won't see it. Right, so I've got my paper put on and I'm ready to turn to my next layer, which will be my orange layer, my Grapefruit Grove. For this layer I chose to use the wider gingham rather than the narrow side, just for a bit of a change. And I've also used the Grapefruit Grove paper from the Botanical butterfly set in the corners. Now at the moment I'm only sticking on the orange pieces, but you can see from my sample that the next layer down, the black and white layer, is going to be seen eventually from this layer, but for now I'm just adhering on my orange pieces, my Grapefruit Grove. So there's my Grapefruit Grove already all stuck down, and I'm ready to turn to my next layer, which will be my black and white layer. As you can see from my sample here, you will be able to see some of the black and white from the Grapefruit Grove layer. So when you're stamping your sentiment up here and your butterfly down here, you do need to take a little bit of care. So I've got my black and white, which is going to go there, and then my 4 pieces of butterfly paper will go on the wings. And then I've got these pieces of 6cm by 6cm Whisper White, and on those I have stamped a little note, and I have stamped the small butterfly only. Now I said to you before that the butterflies are joined together on the stamps as a single stamp. The way I got around that was I simply cut my stamp apart. Oh, shock! Horror. A lot of people are saying, oh no, you can't cut your stamps. And yes, I admit it does fill me with a little bit of dread when I do it. But the simple thing is, I can now use that little butterfly on its own to stamp that there. It's much easier to do that than try and mask this piece off as well. Now if I want to stamp them together, I can simply sit them together on the block and stamp them as one piece. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to adhere these pieces to my black and white, just with a bit of Tondo. Okay, so they all get stuck on like that. When you stamp your sentiment here, make sure you try and keep it to the top of your piece of Whisper White. Same with the butterfly, try and keep it near the bottom so that they still show through and they're not cut off when you're back on your orange layer. So that one can now be turned again that way back to the front of our card. So I did say there was some more decorations to be done on the front here, and that is true. So it's time to go ahead and do the decorations for the front of our card. Now, I said earlier, some of the designer series paper from the Botanical butterfly pack does coordinate with the butterfly punch. So this is the piece that coordinates with it. As you can see, I've chopped a few out already. First thing you need to do is choose which butterfly you want to use. I have gone with some of the more orange, more of the Grapefruit Grove in my sample, and I've roughly cut out one of those butterfly shapes. You need to do that first, roughly cut it out. So I roughly cut out my butterfly, and I have got my butterfly duet punch, and as you can see, there's really not a lot left to hold on to try and punch it out. So I've got a trick for you. There's two things you can either do. The first you can do is attach a sticky note. I've just got a sticky note here, and you attach it to the back, and then you can put your butterfly into the punch and use the sticky note to maneuver it around and have it where you want it to be. The second idea is, if you've got one of these great little tools, the Stampin' Up Take Your Pick tool, there's a putty tip, and the other thing that you can do is you can use your putty tip to maneuver your butterfly around where you want it, hold it in place, and then you can punch your butterfly out. If you've used a piece of sticky note, just don't forget to remove the piece off the back before you stick it down. There you are, you have your beautiful butterfly punched out, and that's all ready to go onto the front of your card. And then you want to get that little butterfly stamp, you know, the one that we cut off from the other one, and you want to stamp that in some Memento Tuxedo Black. And then I have coloured mine with a marker to match my butterfly. Now all the butterflies are orange, some of them are blue, some of them are green, some of them are purple, so you will choose a colour to colour that in that matches whichever one you chose. I have got one already prepared here, which is orange to match my butterfly, and that's going to go on there. The next thing you're going to want to do is grab that piece of Whisper White cardstock that was larger than 5 centimetres square, and you will want to stamp your sentiment that says the good things in life are better with you, and you want to stamp that down on there, again in a colour that's going to match your butterflies. So mine is the Grapefruit Grove. Once you've done that, you will want to cut it out with the layering circles die on the Big Shot, and you'll end up with something like that. Then you want to get your piece of Grapefruit Grove foil and cut it out with the scallop circle die on the Big Shot, and you'll end up with something like that, which you can layer on top, and then that can be adhered to there. So go ahead and do those things now, and I will be back to you in a moment. So hopefully you've got all those stuck on now. The last thing I have got is some of the Share What You Love Artisan Pearls. They have a pretty Grapefruit Grove colour that's just going to match my butterfly beautifully. And I'm going to use my Take Your Pick tool again. This time I have got the spatula end. I'm going to use that just to so easily pick up some of my pearls and place them onto my card without bumping the camera. And there you go. Your card is finished, and you should have your Neverending or Infinity card. I hope you enjoy making this project and as much as I enjoyed bringing it to you. Thank you.